Hello and welcome to the CEC for Life podcast. My name is Christian McGrew, and I'm the host of the podcast and director of outreach for CEC for Life. Today, we are joined with two very special guests. We have Eleanor, who is joined by her new baby, Philip, and she is on our podcast team and a really good friend that we've done a lot of pro-life work in the past. And also, we have Father Frank Pavone, who is our special guest today, and I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit.
Yes, thank you, Christian. And Eleanor, good to be with you. I direct the Priest for Life organization. I've been doing it since 1993. It is one of the largest pro-life groups in the world. It's one that is educational and pastoral. We work with churches and with pro-life organizations and really with anyone who wants to bring an end to abortion. We equip the pastors. We have a big ministry for healing after abortion. We have a speakers bureau. We do broadcasting and publishing. We travel constantly to be in the midst of the pro-life movement, whether it's out on the streets with marches and prayer vigils at the abortion facilities, or in strategy rooms, we're bringing together other pro-life groups to plan activities and to plan strategies. And also very active in the elections to help activate the people of God to go into the voting booth and to elect pro-life candidates. So that overall, Priests for Life, it started obviously as an outreach to priests. We're trying to help priests to preach on this issue and pray about it and mobilize their people. And that is still a very core aspect of our work. But we have expanded beyond that, and it's not simply for the Catholic world. This is a ministry that is reaching across the body of Christ and even beyond, to help people simply stop this evil of abortion.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction. And we're going to go ahead. Our first topic today is the amendments in the different states, the statewide amendments. Mainly for people in Florida, it'll be Amendment 4. I know this is not just for people in Florida, but for us, for at least for myself and Father Pavone, we're both in Florida. So that's a big one that we're dealing with right now. But throughout the whole country, a bunch of different states have abortion amendments on the ballot this November. And so Father Pavone, what have you seen in these different amendments? How have the pro-abortion side, what kind of tactics have they used, and how can we compare and contrast that?
Well, they're hiding. This is not a sign of their strength. It's a sign of their weakness and cowardice. What do I mean? Roe versus Wade was in place for almost 50 years. And what that did is it proclaimed a right to abortion in the Constitution, the federal Constitution. Supreme Court said no such right ever existed. It was never acknowledged in American history, and it was a farce. So it was a big loss for them, because with Roe v. Wade in place, and let's think about this carefully, they never had to justify abortion to the American people. They had this dogma. It's a constitutional right. Who wants to argue against the constitutional right? And in fact, courts or legislatures can't. They're any law or any court decision is always has to be within the boundaries of the Constitution, whether you're talking on the state level or federal level. Okay, so this got them off the hook from having to make the case to the American people that abortion should be legal and that it's a good thing. Once that excuse was taken away, once that kind of silver bullet or magic wand was taken out of their hands, now the field was an equal playing field. We would keep making the same arguments that we've been making about who this baby is, what abortion does to the baby, what abortion does to the mom, the dad, the family, and to all of society. It's very destructive. We keep making that case. And now they have to argue, why is abortion a good thing? Because there is no argument about abortion being a good thing, and because you can't persuade somebody based on reason that killing a baby is a good thing, they had to quickly find another escape route. They had to quickly find another place to hide, to not make the argument about what abortion actually is. What did they find? Well, if there's no right to abortion in the federal Constitution, how about we put a right to abortion in the state Constitution? Because the end result is the same for them. They can say to any pro-life law that gets introduced, a bill or a law that gets passed, they could say to any court decision that doesn't go their way, wait a minute. And they can even say to it, just in a conversation with their fellow citizens about this, they can say, wait a minute, there's a constitutional right to this. And what ends up happening is that shuts down all argument and discussion any further. And again, they're off the hook. They never have to persuade anybody that abortion is a good thing because it's already a constitutional right. So what we see them doing, now you can't do this in every state. Every state has different rules and procedures and laws. But in certain states, the citizens themselves can initiate a constitutional amendment. Now, this isn't the way public policy should be shaped. It should be shaped through the legislatures. That's where there's more accountability, there's more of a give and take, there's debate, there's evidence, there's a process. And then lawmakers are accountable because they can be lobbied by citizens one way or the other. And if they don't like which way they're going, they can be voted out of office. So the legislative process is perfectly tailored for this. But these constitutional amendment processes are in place in different states. So where have they introduced these things? They've introduced them, like you said, in Florida. And we're also dealing with Colorado, Maryland, New York, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, and South Dakota. So there's 10 states in play right now with these battles. It's all essentially cut from the same cloth. There is a right to abortion. The different states phrase it differently, and some of these states I just mentioned are very pro-abortion, like New York and Maryland. Others are very pro-life, like South Dakota and even Missouri. I mean, Missouri is one of those that has been protecting the unborn from conception. We've had some victories. They tried to do this in Arkansas. It seems like it's not going to get on the ballot there. They tried to do this in Minnesota, and we kept it off the ballot there. So there have been victories, but we have to stop this now in these states that I just mentioned. But that's the overview of what is going on here right now, and these will be on the ballot this fall in those states.
Yeah, and a lot of, I mean, definitely in Florida at least, and I'm sure in the other ones as well, they have such a deceptive style of wording in these amendments, and it's very vague to where I know we've talked about it before on this podcast, and I know a lot of us have talked about it, but in Florida, it allows not only abortion for any reason up until viability, which they don't specify viability, but it also allows abortion for any health concern by any health provider up until birth, which could be a chiropractor saying that you have mental stress, because they don't actually they don't specify what kind of health provider, they don't specify who has to give that prescription to have that abortion. So it's very radical. I think that actually most pro-choicers wouldn't even agree with it if they actually knew what the full extent of the amendment was.
No, they would not. That's right. Polling shows most pro-choice people think there should be more restrictions on abortion, not less. And this is one of the ways that we can present this whole thing to people is like very simply, very, very simply. You want more abortion or less in America? One of the ads I made in regard to these amendments was I started out by saying, there are initiatives on the ballot this fall in several states to increase the numbers of abortions. So I'd like to see how many American people raise their hand and say, hey, that's a great idea. The people don't think it's a great idea. Even if they think it should be allowed, technically that makes them pro-choice. They don't want more abortion. They want less. Even the Democrat Party, which is now, they're full in on abortion on demand without any restrictions. But they used to say, as President Bill Clinton made famous, the phrase, abortion should be safe, legal, but rare. And you see how they were backing away. Because if it's a fundamental right, if it's a constitutional right, why should it be rare? Yeah, I believe in freedom of speech, but it should be rare. I believe in freedom of religion, but it should be rare. And so by saying rare, they were giving a nod in our direction, and because they had to, it was like most people realize, yeah, this is not a good thing, abortion. But now they've abandoned that. And it's like, no, this is a fundamental right. Now, the interesting thing is the Supreme Court never considered this a fundamental right. See, so this goes, they'll try to say, oh, we're just trying to, restore Roe or codify Roe. This does no such thing. Roe v. Wade admitted that the right to abortion was not absolute. Roe v. Wade allowed states to even prohibit abortion in later stages of pregnancy. If they wanted, they didn't have to, but they could. And Roe v. Wade said, this is not simply the right of the mother. This is inherently a medical decision. And so they put it under the context of the physician, evaluating the circumstances of the mom. It's radical, way radical, like you said, way more radical both than Roe and also than most pro-choice people would want to see.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about a little bit about the election. And before we do, though, something that directly goes with the election is the Democratic Party at their convention. They
Yes.
have an abortion ban, and I know Nora looked into this a little bit today. But tell us a little bit more, Nora, about what you found and what exactly they're doing there with their abortion and vasectomy ban.
Yeah, so Monday and Tuesday, they were advertising that they were offering free abortions, mostly through the abortion pill, as well as vasectomies, and they had giant inflatable IUDs. It was a very cavalier environment around it. People said there was like free hot dog coupons for the food stands next door when you got your abortion. And Students for Life reported a confirmed 25 abortions took place over those 2 days. Some like promoting that the Planned Parenthood was doing itself was really focused on being available for people traveling out of states that had more oppressive abortion laws when they were in Illinois for the DNC to take advantage of Illinois' loose rules and be able to have access to this abortion, which really speaks towards the importance of a federal ban, not just state lines, where state lines determine human life and human value. But on a positive note, the pro-life movement did come out there in force. They had the Thrive Bus, I think is the organization, offering free ultrasounds and pregnancy resources. We had sidewalk advocates who were out there, as well as a diaper company called Every Life had a QR code offering a lifetime supply of diapers for people that were choosing life, to help them support and keep their babies, which I heard they had some positive interactions as well. But that's still 25 babies for sure that don't exist anymore. And quite a travesty that happened this week.
Yeah, that is very sad. And especially like, we were just saying the Democratic Party used to say safe, legal, and rare. And now it seems like it doesn't just seem like it. It's very obvious that they're celebrating abortion and they're celebrating the murder of these children. And it is a very big problem, obviously, that we're having the conversation. But I think that the fact that they're so out there and celebrating it kind of proves that their goal even in the beginning was never safe, legal, and rare. It was always just to inch closer and closer to what we see today, and
Yeah.
even more, how I believe Walls, Harris's running mate, he signed is it a bill? I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he signed a bill that basically said that whenever a baby survived a botched abortion, um, they no longer had to provide life-saving care to that baby. They just had to give like pain medicine to that baby.
Yeah. Yeah. And bills to increase protection. Babies who are born, and this sometimes happens, and it's documented both on the state and federal level, that babies sometimes survive the attempt to abort them. This has been happening for a long time, and they have some protections under the law, but they're not adequate protections. Those laws can be strengthened a great deal. And this battle's been going on for quite a while, both in the states and on the federal level, where the Republican Party has been trying to strengthen these laws and say, look, we're not talking about abortion anymore. We're not talking about a child inside the mother. We're talking about a born baby. So the Democrats have consistently, on a state and federal level, come against this kind of legislation. And think about it, it's kind of weird. Barack Obama, when one of the arguments against him when he started running for president way back in those years was that as a state senator, he had voted against a measure to increase these kinds of protections. Tim Walz, the protections were there, he took them away. The Democrats in Congress, over multiple years, and I was involved in a lot of this activity back and forth. They tried. They blocked and would not cooperate in any way, shape, or form the efforts of the congressional Republicans, again, to strengthen those laws that would protect these babies after birth. Why would they do that? Well, because to acknowledge that the law should protect the baby, despite the mother's choice to kill that baby, begins to undermine their whole abortion philosophy. Pro-choice means to them ultimately choice is more important than life. But if you bring in a law that says the very baby that they chose to kill by abortion should now have his or her life protected by the law, now that starts to make it wobbles their position, right? It's like, no, choice doesn't always prevail over life. That baby comes out, now life prevails over choice, and they can't take that. It's like, no, it's such a dogma for them, this so-called right to choose. And people have to understand what this is coming from and the extremes to which it leads, that they can't even sign on to a reasonable measure like this. It's so unreasonable. Many people, as I'm sure both of you have found out, don't even believe us when we tell them that this is happening. They just don't even believe it.
An interesting thing, kind of branching off of that, like that happened during the DNC, was they had 3 women give testimonies about why abortion was necessary.
That's right.
But the 3 examples that they gave, none of them were just saying, I should be able to do this because it's best for me. And that kind of selfish narrative that we often see is pushed to have like the woman's choice, personal choice, elective for any reason. The 3 examples instead that they had were a medical reason, where the mother had sepsis and she was even planning to carry that baby to term. They named their child, all of these things, but it was phrased as because of restrictive abortion laws, she was denied medical treatment until she was quite ill. And then the second one was a woman who had already miscarried, trying to find help at emergency rooms. And the third one was a case of rape. And so I found that very interesting that even in those examples that they had on a national stage trying to promote why we need abortion and why it needs to be accessible, it's still only those like small cases, the extreme medical cases, all of that. They can't create a reason why they should have elective abortion or can't stand behind that claim very well.
Yeah, where were the people at this convention who, well, first of all, where were the abortionists who will make appointments, as we have on our website, recorded phone calls of them making appointments to abort healthy babies of healthy mothers in the 32nd, 33rd week of pregnancy? What about the women like some I've ministered to who have had 20, 25 abortions? The dishonesty is incredible because they'll bring forward these 3 women and it creates the impression that, first of all, what they're battling against on the other side of the aisle is not going to permit abortions in those circumstances. We'll say something about that in a second. But secondly, that creates the impression that, they're just in favor of allowing abortion in the cases of a medical complication or rape. These Democrats would go crazy if there was a national policy only allowing abortion in those circumstances. They would never want that. They would consider that extreme. They have already said that that's extreme, but no. We got to bring in these cases. In all of those cases, you had one of these women was from Texas, another one from Louisiana, the 2 with the medical circumstances. Both of those laws in both of those states, even though they protect most unborn children most of the time, allow abortions in the circumstances that those women faced. So they don't have to. They didn't have to make a federal case out of it, and start complaining on the national stage. I couldn't get an abortion in Texas. I couldn't get an abortion in Louisiana. The fact of the matter is, yes, they could. In fact, the one from Texas, she introduced a court case that went all the way up to the Texas Supreme Court. And the Texas Supreme Court told her, you didn't have to do this. It allows abortion. It really, if they have an argument, it's not with the Republican lawmakers it's with their doctors. Because what these laws require is, okay, we're going to protect the unborn, but if your doctor says your life or some major bodily function is in danger, well, all your doctor has to do is certify to that and you can get the abortion. So if they have an argument with anybody, these women have an argument with their doctors. And, we respect them. We know the difficult circumstances people are in. The pro-life movement helps these women every day. So our argument is not so much with them. It's with the Democrat Party who's exploiting their situation and trying to turn it into a political battering ram, against these restrictions on abortion.
I think exploiting is the perfect word to use for that, because it really is. It's if they weren't in favor of banning abortion in every situation except for their stories, then they really are just using those stories to exploit the narrative that they want.
Precisely.
How do you guys think that this election is going to go? How do you think the different, so, I mean, we obviously have the Democratic Party who is 100% abortion through all 9 months. And, then we have the Republican Party who is pro-life, largely pro-life, although I do think that the Republican Party on all levels should take a more strong pro-life position, in my opinion. But with the choices that we have, how do you guys think that this election is going to go? And how do you think abortion is going to play into this election? Do you think it's going to have a big impact?
Nora, you want to go first?
I think that it definitely is going to have an impact because of the fear-mongering language that you get from the left, where it's really phrased as like, if the Republicans win, we as women are going to be oppressed, we're going to be forced into pregnancies, we're like, our lives will be over. We won't be able to be successful women in the world if we don't have access to abortion, and are really extrapolating it and making it these extreme situations that women having miscarriages or ectopic pregnancies or any complications are going to just die suddenly. And we see in the states where there's been more restrictive abortion laws passed, they don't have an increased maternal mortality rate. You don't see these dramatic back alley abortions happening on a massive scale. But that language is really being pushed. And so if people aren't fact checking it, if they're more inclined to believe that anyways, I think could make them feel like there's more at stake than there actually is. As far as losing their rights, as they put it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. I agree with all that. And looking at these elections, this has been one of the most unpredictable elections ever, one of the most crazy elections ever. I mean, what we've had just in these last 2 months has been absolute, just in the last 1 month has been absolutely crazy. I mean, first of all, you see that these Marxist tactics being used, whereby one party is trying to indict, convict, and jail their political opponent. We don't do that in America. We've never done that in America. They do it in certain other countries, these Soviet countries, banana republics and whatnot. Putin, goes after his political enemies in that way, but not in America. And then, of course, the assassination attempt, and then there was the all of a sudden with Biden. Oh, now they're he wins his primary in the Democrat side of the aisle. 14 million people vote for him, and all of a sudden he's not the nominee. So it's like, what in the world is going to happen next? So, first of all, this election is going to continue to be crazy. We got to, I said to people, I've been saying it for the past year, fasten your seatbelts because there's going to be some crazy things happening. And I repeat that again now, just fasten your seatbelts because we don't know what is going to happen here. Secondly, never has there been more at stake. Not only in terms of pro-life, because as we've been saying, the other side has gotten more extreme than ever. But never has there been more at stake in terms of the very survival of the Constitution. And, people might look at that as extreme language, but you look again at what these Democrats are doing. They are violating the Constitution left and right, going all the way up to the current president. So this is bad. And what's at stake here is not only so monumental, and many people realize, even if, like we were saying, and I was at the Republican convention and I talked to the people who drafted the platform, and it's not as strong as pro-life as we'd like it to be. Nevertheless, it is pro-life. It is making a strong statement. We'd like it to be stronger. It was stronger before, but that's not even what we've got to be, like you already said, is we've got to be not contrasting what it is with what it could be, but with what it is with what the other side is. And that's the battle we have to win right now. But one of the reasons it's like that, there's a profound reason here. When the founders started this country, they were facing, of course, the similarly grave issue of slavery. And the nation was divided, much like it is right now on abortion. Some states were slave states, some states were free states, and they drafted a constitution that they wanted all the states to ratify so that we could be the United States. And they said, what are we going to do about slavery? Because if we say in the Constitution we're going to ban slavery, we're not going to have a United States. The slave states are going to go off on their own. They're not going to join us. And their slavery will continue to fester till God knows what. On the other hand, we can't endorse slavery because it's an evil. So they were in a dilemma similar, I think, to what the Republican Party is facing now with abortion. And what do we do? What do we say? We're going to get behind a national ban or whatever. And if we don't, then how do we maintain our position that abortion is evil because it's the taking of a life? It is a dilemma. The founders took an approach, which, again, it's worth reflecting on. They actually put a clause in the Constitution that said we're not going to do any federal ban on slavery. They didn't use quite those words, but that was the essence of it. We're not going to take any federal action for 20 years. And that was enough to satisfy the slave states. They said, you know what? Okay, we're going to join these United States. And they got the Constitution ratified. But the beauty of it was that very Constitution, containing the freedom of speech, containing the method by which people would influence laws, containing the ability to amend the Constitution, containing the freedom of religion and of the press and of assembly, and we can have marches and we can protest and we can speak out against slavery full-throatedly, and the churches can preach against it. These were the tools that we eventually used as a country to abolish slavery. So it's like, I think we're in a similar situation now, because this election, in an unprecedented way, is a moment when we have to choose to protect the Constitution, to protect freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly. Look, peaceful pro-life people are being thrown in jail. And that's an issue in the election. President Trump has been saying, if I get elected, on day one, we're gonna get those pro-life people out of jail. We're gonna review their cases. We know that injustice has been done. We're gonna get them back home. So it's like all this stuff is going on, and not to go on for too long here, but just I think too, as far as what the outcome is going to be, voters are suffering with the economy. I mean, every time they fill their car with gas, for groceries, or walk out in the park, and they're afraid they're going to be attacked by an illegal immigrant who just walked across the border, and all these things that have gone wrong in the last 3 years are pricking them in the finger every day. The right to choose, yeah, they might be pro-choice, but it's not like making them suffer every day. These other things are. And the fact that these other things are making them suffer every day, I think is going to end up working in our favor, because they know it's the basic question that way back to Ronald Reagan asked, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago or not? And that's a guiding question, I think, now for a lot of voters going into this election. It's not like we don't know what's going to happen under President Trump, because we already experienced it not that long ago. And it's not like we don't know what is happening under the current administration. And Kamala Harris can't separate herself from the Biden administration, because it's the Biden-Harris administration, and she's still vice president. So it's like, you think of you step back and watch what's going on this week, or you listen to the rhetoric, and it's almost like they want us to think, this is a brand new candidate here now. It's going to be so great if she were to get elected. She was elected, not as president, but as vice president. You're getting exactly what you were going to get. And you got already exactly what you're going to get under President Trump. So that dynamic here, I think people need to be talking about this and helping voters realize, hey, wait a minute, folks, this is not as mysterious and complicated as it would be if we had two people running who had never occupied those offices before. Then it would be sort of like, are they going to be faithful to, what are they really going to do? We really don't know. This time, we really do know, because we've lived under it already.
Yeah, we know what we're going to get already on both sides. But yeah, you're right. We are in a place right now in this country that is similar to when we were fighting to end slavery.
Yeah.
And I think that it is important to, like you said, look back at what they did and how to get that done, and how to end an atrocity like slavery was and like abortion is now. But our ultimate goal is to have the preborn in the 14th Amendment. We want
Yes.
to recognize the preborn as human beings, and I think we need to do that. And we're fighting for that, every day. And so I'm hoping that that is the end goal. And I know it takes a while. It took 50 years just to overturn Roe versus Wade, so it might take a little bit of time to get that done. But yeah, for America, definitely the next goal is to get all the states, get all the pro-life laws passed in the states, and then most importantly, like Nora was mentioning earlier, is a federal ban on abortion is necessary. And by
Yeah.
putting the preborn into considering the preborn human beings, that would and citizens of America that'd be how we would do that. And then that's just America. We got to go to the world after that, and that'll be a little bit more complicated.
A
But
worldwide battle. Yeah, it's a worldwide
mhm,
battle. And that's one of the things we do, by the way, where Priests for Life is a registered non-governmental organization, as they call it, NGO, at the United Nations. And we're
wow,
also a similar or kind of organization at a less known entity called the Organization of American States. That's down in South America. And on those battlefronts, the international battlefronts, the other side is always pushing, just like we were talking about before. They want to get a right to abortion in the state constitutions. They had it for a while declared to be in the federal constitution. You know what they want to do? They want to make it an international right to abortion, so
yeah,
that would override even what nations might do individually. Praise God, they've been trying to do that for decades. They have not
mhm,
succeeded because there's always been, nations that have stood up and said, no, we're not going to recognize that.
yeah. Yeah, it's another interesting thing that I've thought about before too is, and I'd be interested to hear both your opinions on this, but I think that abortion in like places like Europe was not as prominent before America kind of took the lead on making abortion a a, a woman's right, even though it's killing half of the people that it's killing are women. But once America took the false stand to have abortion with Roe versus Wade, have abortion legalized. I feel like European countries that may have been more conservative before took a more liberal stance on abortion, and now it almost seems like certain places in Europe it's harder to end those abortion laws, even though they might not be like through all 9 months. In Europe, it's almost way more difficult to have a ban on abortion in those countries now. But I feel like maybe that's because of the United States um, leading the way on that, allowing abortion to be legalized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, the and we see it unfolding. We've seen it unfold in Europe, and most of them, they have it up to about either 12 or 15 weeks.
Yeah.
But in South America, see now a lot of these countries, Mexico and some of these other countries, they're highly involved in this battle on their
Mhm.
national levels. And we see that, exactly what you're saying, they're taking the wrong road here. They're taking the wrong road. There's only a few countries that are protecting the unborn the way that they should be. So yeah, it's very much of an international battle. Um, and I think in many ways, Africa is going to lead the way back to a culture of life. They have
Yeah.
the beauty and the faith itself,
So
where faith is evaporating in some places, but faith is strong in Africa.
yeah.
My family has a close friend from Uganda, and she's always commenting on back in her country where they face very limited resources. Like it is a struggle to live, but no one takes it for granted. Is
Mm,
that it's not even a question of having another baby. They're blessings, even though, like I said, they're hard pressed for resources. She's just baffled by in America where we have so much food, we have people willing to help you, housing, all that stuff available, and support networks in place, that it's even up for debate. Um,
yeah.
but I think it's because we do live in a world of comfort and
Yeah.
valuing your personal comfort over the greater good for your family and for your own children even.
The fact that it's such a worldwide problem led St. John Paul II back in 1995 to issue a document to the whole world called an encyclical, which is what it means. It's a document to encircle the globe, um, about pro-life. The document is called The Gospel of Life. And it's a beautiful document for Christians of all denominations. And you know, it's just rooted in scripture, and it just lays out the case why any follower of Christ or even a believer in God has to see that an attack on a human life is really an attack on God, the creator of human life. This document is wonderful. People can find out about it at gospeloflife.org. And it is a sign of exactly what we're saying here, that the whole world has been engulfed in this culture of death. And it's time to awaken and come out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that America needs to be a role model in this issue. And that would, step one there is to end abortion here. And I think that other countries will also follow once we do that.
We're a big influence. Yeah.
Yes. And I want to give a quick shout out. I know you mentioned Africa, and it is 100% a very pro-life continent, but also the Philippines is very pro-life as well.
Yes.
And the Charismatic Episcopal Church is very big in the Philippines and Africa. And I think that might be one of the big reasons, because there's a lot more youth and young people there that are on fire for God and and that could be because they have the opportunity to be born. So, but yeah, so let's talk a little bit about something that we're doing here in Florida. So Father Pavone's on our board of directors for Defending Life Alliance of Florida. I am the president for Defending Life Alliance of Florida. We are going to host the annual Florida March for the Preborn. And so that's the goal of this new organization that we are starting here. We just a couple of months ago, we officially became an organization with the state. We're going to have a fundraising event on September 21st in Jacksonville, Florida. And if you follow us on Defending Life Alliance on Instagram, you can find out more information on that. And the annual Florida March for the Preborn will be in Tallahassee. We're very close to securing a location in Tallahassee that we can promote once we get the thumbs up from the city. We've been in communication with them, but we do need a guarantee before we can announce the actual location, but we're very close to that. So let's talk a little bit about Defending Life Alliance of Florida and how, having the March for the Preborn, come back to Florida, and how that will be able to rally the troops in Florida to continue to fight not only against Amendment 4, but I'm sure against in the future more statewide amendments that are going to come from the pro-abortion side.
Florida's a pro-life state. We're battling this Amendment 4, but we have made significant progress over the last couple of years, as you know, and the laws that are passed are a reflection of the will of the people. The election of, the Florida has become a more and more red state, and Republicans now have far outpaced Democrats in voter registration and things like that. And this is a reflection of the mood of the people. So we protected babies starting at 15 weeks a couple of years ago, and then last year increased that protection to go to 6 weeks. And the day that law went into effect, of course, we had to wait for the court to do its work to give the constitutional green light. That morning, I walked outside to my backyard and I kissed the ground. I said, Florida's ground is less soaked now with the blood of unborn babies. And that's why something like this is needed. These organizations are needed, not because we are not a pro-life state, but because as a pro-life state, we have to keep defending that. We have to keep preserving the progress that we have made. And if the other side pushes back or they accomplish some of their goals, we're going to push right back even harder. And, you get some of these amendments passed in some of these states, like they have been passed in Michigan, Ohio. You push back and you gain back that territory again. If an amendment can be put into a constitution, it can be taken out. And this is what the movement has to just keep our eyes on the prize. And I think this new alliance is going to help us do that. And, and as far as the march, people have to express themselves with marches since the Dobbs case. And there's been more focus now on the fact that the states can do more than they could under Roe. Various states have had marches for the unborn, for the preborn, for the marches for life. They call them different things. But I like what we're doing here is that, we're making it clear this is about the babies. It's a march for the preborn, because you know what ends up happening is you use the phrase a march for life. We know what that means. We know what that means. But what do people out in the general public that are not part of the pro-life movement think it means? I don't know, because for life can mean a lot of different things. Every issue ultimately is a life issue. If it doesn't impact human life, why is it an issue at all? So I think that the need for the movement right now and moving forward really is to say, look, we're advocating here for something very specific. We're not pretending to solve the problems of the world or fix every issue. There's a group of people whose most basic right to life is not being protected, and we want it protected. We're advocating for them. And the people are the babies in the womb, you know. And sometimes, you know, Christians, some people feel like, you know, in order to make their case on abortion, they have to somehow prove, you know, that they're working on every other issue under the sun. And oh yeah, you know, I'm in favor of this and in favor of that. And listen, we're not even talking about that. Protect these babies. Oh, why are you focusing just on the unborn? Because they happen to be the only group of people whose basic right to life isn't protected right now. Isn't that enough of a reason? And
Yeah.
it's so, like, I like the fact that we're on the same page with that. We're zeroing in on that. You know, obviously, we're part of the pro-life movement. We help the moms. We support the pregnancy centers. We are part of a lot of the work we do. We're healing the wounds after abortion. We're solidly there with the women and with the dads too. But this is about restoring protection to these babies, and people should not shy away from that or feel like, you know, if they mention that they somehow have to invoke 100 other issues.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very excited for Defending Life Alliance and our main mission, which is to host the annual Florida March for the Preborn.
Yeah.
And for those of you guys are listening who are a part of the Charismatic Episcopal Church, and also I know you guys are familiar with this, but we're gonna have the march based around the liturgy for the preborn. And the liturgy for the preborn is kind of like a last rites funeral service for the preborn, and it's designed to give right outside an abortion clinic, right before those babies are going in to be killed. And so really excited that you know, CEC for Life's liturgy for the preborn is going to be the focal point of the prayer, you know, service part of the march before we go and march around the Capitol. So
Yeah,
that's
and I've been
exciting.
privileged to help conduct those services in various parts of the country for many years, as a matter of fact. And in fact, I helped to write some of the prayers. And my association with the CEC has been long and fruitful. And I'm glad with you and with this work and with the Alliance that we can continue doing exactly that.
I am too. I'm very excited for that. So I like to have like one like really fun topic at the end of these. And today we're gonna do another pro-life TV show. And so I think that Eleanor has a TV show she wants to talk about that's on Netflix. So you can go ahead and talk about Made.
Yeah, so disclaimers first that it's not an officially pro-life TV show, and it is an adult show. So there are mature themes that are in it. I think that there's a rude scene and definitely some cursing. So that's my disclaimer first for before you decide to go watch it. But like Christian likes to point out in previous podcasts, having these subtle pro-life messaging through secular media is almost more effective in a lot of ways. And so this TV show is focused around a young girl who's in an abusive situation, trying to get out of it. And the first sign of abuse starts when she finds herself facing an unplanned pregnancy with her boyfriend, and he tells her that he wants her to abort it, and they have a whole big fight about it. And ultimately she keeps the pregnancy, and for 2 years they try to tough it out. But that was really the first warning sign of his demeanor towards her and towards their baby. And throughout the show, you watch her try to leave this man who is not physically abusive, but is verbally and mentally abusive, and try to make it with her daughter. And ultimately, like, her success story is that she gets back to college and all of the dreams that kind of got disrupted when she first found out she was pregnant. She achieves all of those. But it really gives you a good mindset of how hard it is to get out of hard situations, and how when you are down, not having a car to find work, not having pay stubs to get into government housing, things like that can really make it hard to succeed in life. And having things like domestic violence shelters, having pregnancy resource centers, all of this community support is what helps her to reach those goals. And it was worth watching if you've been in a place of privilege your whole life and you haven't ever had to worry about food and safety of your children and all of that, to get into the mindset of how hard it can be and how important it is for us to continue to fund and support women in vulnerable situations, because women who are pregnant and women with children are really in a hard class to try to make it in life and trying to get out of these bad home environments.
So this is based on a true story. That is, you know, and it's what the pro-life movement tries to do for these moms, isn't it? That we try to instill courage in them. The pregnancy centers across the country have so many great programs to help do that, and that willingness to struggle, that willingness to fight for yourself, for your child, for what is right. Hopefully, this can inspire a lot of people.
Yeah. It's very, like Nora said, it's very important in culture to have examples to look to. And we see a lot of negative pieces of entertainment and culture that dehumanize human life, dehumanize the preborn, dehumanize other groups of people. And I think that's just kind of a slow fade. And it wasn't always like that. But now, when we see things like this TV show, we see things, we've talked about other movies like Dune, which basically had a preborn child as one of the characters who was speaking to her mother. And these types of they're not explicitly pro-life movies by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure the people who made them are not pro-life, but when you in your entertainment, when you infuse it with, you know, making sure that people know that these humans are, they have their life is sacred, you know, and we have a lack of that in our culture, and that's why it's so important to see these, even though it's not all of it, it's really important to see these few movies that are coming out recently or TV shows where you can just really see that even if it doesn't mean to, it's showing us the humanity of the unborn child.
Yes, exactly.
And I think this show also did a good job of, often as a culture, women are told that if you have a child, your life is over.
Yeah.
And it shows that when you have a child, life is harder. But she still made it to her college. She still got into the writing program she wanted. And it took her, like, there's a 2-year gap where she was working to get out of that situation. But she did it. And it ends up on that positive note that she's going to be successful in life and she's going to find the joy and do things with this daughter that she loves more than anything in the world. And having that idea that women can do both, and it's harder. Like, since having a child, we learn, like, yeah, it takes a little longer to get out the door and it's a little bit more cumbersome to do things, but you can still do things and you can still get out there. But having a world that makes accommodations and has that support for it is so key. And it's cool to note that this show was Netflix's 4th most watched show of the year. So
Oh, look at that.
That was pretty cool that people
You
are
know,
liking this messaging and liking that hope that's given in it.
yes, and I often summarize the mission of the pro-life movement by saying it's a mission to replace despair with hope, because it's not freedom of choice that leads people to the door of an abortion facility or to an abortion van in front of the Democrat National Convention. It is despair. It's the feeling that they have no freedom and no choice. And you know, productions like this can inspire that hope, like you just said. And inspiring hope and replacing despair with hope is what's going to enable us to overcome abortion, because ultimately it's an act of despair. This is, and it's like the feminists for life say, refuse to choose. In other words, don't buy the notion that it's going to be either the life of your baby or your life, or the life of your baby or your education or your career. No, you can have all of that, but you're going to have the courage to seek it and fight for it.
Yeah. And we know a lot of even pro-life leaders who have overcome those exact same circumstances and had successful ministries and successful jobs. And they just prove that women can have children and also be successful in their careers and as a mother. So,
well, you know who exemplifies that, and isn't it so interesting that She was one of the ones responsible for reversing Roe v. Wade. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. I mean, she's a wife and mother, and she's got
Yeah.
a good number of children, and she has proven what the pro-life movement says.
She has. So on this note, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But I wanted to say thank you so much again to Eleanor Sand and Frank Pavone for hopping on. It's been a great conversation. And thank you everyone for watching. And I hope that we'll see you guys soon.